Alrighty, so this is going to be my second devlog, and just want to go over how I progressed the system so far. First of all, previously I just had characters performing their actions, but they weren't really attacking the bear in the party. So what I first did was I updated the combat routines to include the ability to create a party with the available combatants. And inside this method, all I'm doing is grabbing the combatants that I instantiated over here, creating an array, and I'm setting them to a party variable, looping over each one of them and calling a create party method that I created on each individual base combatant class. So anytime I call that, it just takes the members passed in and it excludes the current members, so that it's just the members that are not you as a part of the party, and then inserts it into the party members array so that they have a reference of that object inside of their own class. So then once that party is set up, I follow through with the delay and then a combat tick every 1.5 seconds like I had before, and that triggers this, which loads the manage round function, and this is slightly modified from before to where once you choose an ability, instead of just printing out the output there, it has logic to have the targets pick a target essentially. So what I've done is I made it to where all the party members target the bear, and then the bear targets the tank in the party. I didn't do any more logic besides that, just to see if I could get this to work. These notes are relevant to something I noticed as I was going through this experience, which is that the type of variable can mean a lot in how you want to have things work. So before I thought I had to cast 2 base combatant when I'm setting up this getting of an element inside this index, and it turns out that if I just set the correct value here, you don't have to cast. It's probably, the note is probably just that I don't have to cast. Yeah, don't have to cast because it's already that. So that's one of those things that I can actually remove and clean this up a bit. But then I move on to executing the chosen ability, and all that happens here is the target combatant and the target and the ability are passed into a method that is stored inside of each base combatant class, and the outcome is a bunch of message text strings to be processed into the update log at the end of it. So I figured it would be easiest to have all that managed inside of the class. So if we hop here, you can see this got kind of extensive. The steps remain the same. All it does here is it detracts the costs, and then it executes the actual damage type. I'm thinking this might expand into like different types of damage, damage over time, things like that. But for now I'm just keeping it simple with just straight instant damage. And then there's a switch for the chosen ability target type, the tier of the ability. So in this system I'm experimenting with the idea of having tier 0, tier 1, and tier 2 abilities, and they run off of either just no combat points, combo points, tier 1 combo points, or tier 2 combo points. And what this is doing is making sure that when you execute a 1, you get a 0, a 1 combo point. When you execute a 1, you get a tier 2 combo point. And then your tier 3, tier 2 abilities don't generate combo points yet, at least. And they just expend and deal a lot of damage in this case. So I tied all these to the next available thing, and I set up these messages, which currently now use rich text. As you can see, I've set up some rich text values with this combat mock slate style sheet, I guess you can call it. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. Let's see. Style rich row, rich text style row. All it does is it takes a bunch of default values, right? and you can style it however you want. I just have a couple of common colors that I wanted to have available for when I format this text in the window. So I assigned that to the rich text component that I created here, and here's some default values for me to make sure that it works. And all this does is well, it doesn't even do anything. It's just text. You set text on it and it's good to go. And then up here in the Combat Mock UI, I've updated it so that instead of going with a binding, since it didn't have that available, I just took the text and I formatted it into what it needed to be. And I just assign it to the rich text message. And then I just do the same thing, add the child scroll to end. Same method, different kind of technique. So I've done that here. I've done that by collecting a bunch of the values that are needed for the message to output in the way that I'd like. And I do a separate line that also produces what the results of the action are. So this is like the action chosen and the state of the combo points. And then over here is the damage and how much HP is remaining on the target. And that gets added to the message array. One thing I noticed here is before I was using an insert command, thinking it would add it to the end, and it just produced the reverse. It just produced the results and then the actual action after that, and I was kind of confused at first. So if you're ever dealing with arrays, insert adds at the index you want it to, add adds to the end. And then I move on and I set up a new enum for classes, and it just is a list of the classes I've defined so far. Spartan. I imagine the Spartan is like a shield spear type of class. Rogue is what you would typically assume, and then a mage is what you would assume as well. So here I switch off these, and the idea here that I'm introducing into the combat is that whenever you use a skill, if it's a tier 0, it's not going to do anything besides just giving you a combo point. If you use a tier 1 or tier 2 skill though, that implies that you're expending combo points that are produced by the previous tiers to produce a greater effect. And on top of producing the extra damage in this case, it's also going through your party members and granting them combo points as well. So what this is describing here is that if you're a Spartan, you're going to look for the nearest mage in your group and then grant them a combo point based on the tier of skill you've just used. So if you've used tiers 1, you'll grant them a tier 1 combo point. If you used a tier 2, you'll grant them a tier 2 combo point. And my idea here is that as people group together in this game, if it gets to that point, it'll actually be much more beneficial to actually provide each other combo points for free just by being a part of the party and cooperating, right? So I move through and I set up a new text to indicate like, hey, this person has gotten a combo point as a result of another player using a skill. Add it to the array, and I do that same thing for the rest. So rogues grant Spartans combo points, mages grant both rogues and Spartans combo points. And then we add that to the array. I also added a blank item to the array just to add a little separation between each round of actions. Then the outcome messages get returned and we move on to the next stage. So the execution of the ability is completed. We loop through each message in the string text array, and then we go ahead and update the log here with each message. And then after that, once this loop is complete, we increment the turn index like we've done in the previous devlog. And that is the gist of things. So we can just go ahead and see how it looks. So as you can see, the Spartan uses thrust, gains a combat point. Everyone gets their first combat point in this round. In the second round of turns, everyone gets their second combat point. As you can see, there's a percentage of health remaining as well. And then now we're on our third combat point, and this is where the first tier 1 skill gets used, Sweep. And as you can see, it deals more damage and grants Megumin a combo point 1. And as we continue, Ignite gets used, Stab gets used, and now we're starting to build up combo points, and now Iziak has 3 combo points. And his next turn is probably going to be a tier 2 skill. And I believe it's called Eviscerate. Did I miss that one? Anyway, as you can see, here you go. Here's a tier 3, downward thrust. This is 40 damage, does a lot of damage. And as you can see, combo points are just getting thrown around and everyone's happy. I think by the end of this combat, the tank still dies and the bear has 24% HP. But regardless, I'm hoping I'm getting across that this simple way of going through the logic and kind of mocking out what you want to happen in text form really reduces the amount of time of you having to worry about character rigging, for instance. And, you know, it might even be a way to start fueling the logic for the rest of your game. And I guess we'll see where I go from there. And thanks for listening.